All right. Hello, how is everyone? Greetings. Give me a moment here as I pop out the chat. Very nice to see all of you today. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, Principal Evangelist for Creative Cloud. So glad you could join me today on the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel to talk about top five Audition CC effects for mixing, mastering, and making your audio awesome. And a lot of these things are, somewhat common, maybe to some of you who use the application a lot. Maybe not. Maybe you're new and you're playing around and want to know more about the application and kind of what it can do. Well, that's really my goal today, is to showcase to you some effects that I think you can use often. These are things that I probably use in pretty much every session that I mix. And it just kind of speaks to the wide variety of things that Audition does. So as always, I can see we've got lots of people chiming in from all over the world. Hello, Sasfront. Hello, Tinash. Mauricio from Paraguay. Matthew, B Studio. All right, Sphinx, Kenneth, Julianne, Pancito. Evil Cerise, always nice to see you. Jokin Boken, Nova FX, Pancito. All right, great. Sylvester, Nitesh. Awesome to have all of you here. Saif, love you too. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm going to showcase a couple of different sessions along the way here where I'm using some of these. And some of them I've actually stripped out different effects so we can add them back in. So now remember, of course, this is a live chat, so you can ask questions here. Also, I see some people, just about to get to bed in Spain. All right, yes, so Nacion, these will all, of course, be archived right here on the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel. You'll be able to watch this immediately after we're done. Today's session will be somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour. That's what we like to keep these YouTube ones to, just to give a little bit more depth, a little bit more context, and more time for questions. Michelle from Nova Scotia, how are you? Martin from Norway. Saif, you're in Bangladesh. Very, very nice. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to bounce over, and we'll start in the multi-track, of course. And hello, Luis from Puerto Rico. Switch over here. There we go. And yeah, let's get started. Now, I may wind up putting on some headphones. I don't know. I don't want the fold back of the speakers to disrupt the sound terribly. And hey, Sola from Georgia. Mark and Richard from Slovakia. Stefana, Dubai is here. Very nice. Sending love as well. Vladimir from Colorado, US. Okay. So this is not necessarily in my top 5 must-use order, but these are sort of the first top 5. In fact, I'm probably going to have about 10 top 5s just in these effects, just in different effects alone, because there's a lot of really useful things here. And some things you're going to use all the time. Some things are your go-tos. Some things are those like save the day type effects. I've got 1 or 2 of those squeezed in here, and I think you'll find this pretty useful. And this is the kind of stuff that can really make a difference, from taking your mixes to kind of that next level. And in fact, this first effect does just that, all right? So one last hello before we get started. Aisha, hey, nice to see you again from Georgia. Kent from New York. Alejandro from Colombia, very nice to see you. Hassan from Norway. Nasitalka from Praha. Ooh, very nice. Actually, Nasitalka, I might be showcasing some music from a band that I recorded who often tour a lot in Prague. Chip Hanna and the Berlin 3. So they've got a new record coming out, which will be on my label. So hopefully we'll see that later this year. And Madava, it's very good to see you, and I am very well. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm similar to Spock. I take that as a compliment. Okay. Oh, Spock's a DJ. Well, that's good too. All right. But can he do this? All right. All right. Zilla Land, Rob Zilla. What is up, dude? One of the greats. Rob Generette III is here. Such an honor, man. Great to see you. All right. Let's dive in. So we're going to start here first by showcasing the effect called the Multiband Compressor. And for that, I'm going to start with a little bit of music here. Now, many of you are familiar with compressors, compressor limiters, I'm sure. A multiband compressor is just that. It's a way to control individual frequency bands via compression and or limiting. Now, while you can do all of that, and some of you will know that I have an Audio 101 course on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Jason Levine video. Multiband compression is it's something a bit more difficult to showcase, and I don't want to have to teach you that right now. So you can go back to my Audio 101 lessons 8 and 9 and learn how to set these compressors properly if you want to learn about multiband. I'm showing you the multiband here because it has an element inside of there called its brick wall limiter, and that's what we're really going to focus on. Now, what is a brick wall limiter? Well, you've got a lot of different ways that you can limit a signal. Effectively, a brick wall limiter allows you to set your digital ceiling, which means the loudest you want your signal to go. And you do that in decibels. Now remember that when we're working digitally, we're working in a negative logarithmic scale. What does that mean? That means that 0, I'm very good with my hand motions today, 0 is as loud as we can get. 0 is loudest possible. And then depending upon the bit rate you're at, whether you're at 16-bit, minus 96 is the quietest, or if we're in 24-bit, minus 144, or if we're in 32-bit float, it's an approximate minus 1500, something like that, or minus infinity, okay? So the brick wall limiter allows you to set your ceiling and then add boost, add gain to make everything really hit that ceiling and make it very loud and make it kind of glue together and in your face. Now, this is an element of mastering. This is part of mastering. This alone is not mastering. Again, if you want to know more about that, check out Audio 101, Episode 10, Mastering. It's a lot of things involved. And this can also be pushed, you can also overdo this. But I want to showcase to you this effect because the brick wall limiter is kind of buried in there. And most importantly, not only does it sound good, but it has a very classic kind of analog characteristic to it as well. So it's digital, but it sounds kind of fat and thumpy like kind of classic limiters did. And this one I use almost on every mix that I make somewhere inside the mix. Sometimes I'll do it on an entire mix of tracks, which I'll show you in a moment. Other times I use it on just a series of instruments. So what I've got here, I've got soloed, are some drums. This is from a song of mine called Pirate Teeth. And if you take a look in the mixer here, you'll actually see that I have a lot of non-audition effects applied to these drums. Now these drums needed a little bit more love, and the particular artist that was drumming for me on this track happens to really like these SSL G-Series EQs and compressors, so I used those on his drums for him because he likes them. However, when it was coming time to kind of glue the entire drum kit together, what I first did was subgroup everything into a bus, and that allows me one slider to control all the individual instruments in the drum kit at the same time. And that's where we're going to apply this brick wall limiter to really give everything a super amount of punch, kind of right in your face. Now again, more often than not, you'd probably use a compressor on the entire drum kit. This is just going to showcase to you in an easier way kind of the difference between making something kind of slightly louder and really kind of in your face without ever exceeding that ceiling, that digital ceiling, all right? So first, let's just take a listen to the drums as they are with no additional glue, no additional limiting or compression on the whole applied to them. Take a quick listen. Okay, so that's as good of a place as any to stop. All right, so you can hear the drums sound nice, they're balanced, they're clean. Again, we've got everything separated, so I recorded everything on its own track. So whether we're talking about the kick or the snare, snare, or the overheads. All right, so those are the left and right overheads above the entire kit. Okay. All right, so now what we want to do is, again, kind of glue this together, but sometimes you just want to make those drums a little bit more powerful, a little bit bigger, all right? So let's go up to the effects insert here, twirl down and go to amplitude compression, multiband compressor, all right? Now, as I mentioned, inside this multiband compressor, first of all, you have 4 bands. So this is what's known as a 4-band compressor. And if you take a look here, you'll notice that there's actually this little frequency display, right? all the way from 0 to, based on whatever your sample rate is of your session, in this case 48K, that would mean that the highest frequency captured here is 24 kilohertz. What this allows you to do is control compression or limiting in each of these bands that you define by setting a crossover point. Now, again, as I said at the very beginning, this starts to get super technical. It's kind of too much to teach unless I wanted to spend this whole hour on multiband compression. So we're not going to go there. The point is that you can control, think of it this way, the bass frequencies separately. Sometimes you want a different compression. You really want that kick to be, you want that to just smack you in the face. And you want the snare to smack you in the face. But maybe you want the cymbals and everything to be a little bit more chill, a little bit quieter, not quite so, depending upon the type of music. You can do this with the multiband compressor, and we have lots of good presets to get you started there. All right, if I click on this preset menu here, oh, it's freaking out. You can see a whole bunch of different presets. Now, if you're going to test any of these out, I highly recommend the broadcast preset. Is kind of a good way to get started. Classical master, again, it's a bit conservative, but it's going to give whatever mix you put through there just a little bit more glued together kind of feeling. We even got one for drums here. I don't think I've ever used that. A couple of these are okay. Pop master, and again, you can kind of play around with these, but we're not going to touch any of that. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I don't want to go through the compressor circuitry here, is I'm going to bypass the compressor circuitry. So you can see I'm illuminating all the B's, B for bypass here. So we're not passing through there at all, because all I want to focus on is this, the brick wall limiter. So I'm going to make sure that this box is checked to enable that brick wall limiter. Now up in the limiter circuitry here, you'll see we've got 4 basic settings. So this kind of conforms to the standard compressor limiter settings where we have a threshold, all right? Threshold is the point at which your compression or limiting begins, the point at which it kicks in, right? And you have to exceed that threshold dynamically to make that compressor or limiter kick in. And then we have the margin, and the margin is the digital ceiling. So how loud do you want things to be? Well, again, because we're working in a negative logarithmic scale, you don't really ever want to go to minus 0.1. I mean, you can. It's just that there's really no need to. One, because your ear, your brain, doesn't perceive a change in amplitude if it's any less than about a dB and a half. So even if this margin were minus 1 or minus 0.5 or minus 1.5, technically, I tend to think it's actually around 1.2 dB or so. You don't perceive a difference. You really don't. And to be honest, when we're mixing and trying to leave room for things, you're getting into kind of a scary area if you leave it quite this hot. So if I'm going to do this on either an overall mix or something like a drum track or something like that, I'll typically put this margin anywhere between -2 to -6. Just depends on where I'm going. Now again, this is just a drum track embedded within a whole series of other instruments. So I can go a little bit more aggressive here. So I'm going to set this to -2, which means I'm 2 decibels below 0 or below digital clipping. Now attack, that's how quickly it kicks in. For brick wall limiting, you want that to be a very fast attack. You don't want to let things slip through. The default is 4 milliseconds. You can drag this all the way down to 1. I tend to think 4 sounds pretty musical. And then the release time. Now, again, for a lot of brick wall limiting, often this release is a bit faster. Now, the default here for this particular one is 500. If you've got really fast, continuous music, sometimes you want a faster release. However, if you've got something that's continuous and loud and always playing, you can go a little bit longer on that release time. You're not going to hear that kind of limiter circuitry decay before it kicks back in again. Like, this is a really fast song. It's punk. So I'm just going to leave it at the default for now, and I'll let you hear what that sounds like. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the threshold first. We're going to start this at 0, okay? Again, our margin is at 2, and I guess I'll put some headphones on for this so I can really hear what you guys are hearing. And as I increase the threshold here, you're going to hear how this is getting louder and louder and louder. But pay attention to the level meters here on the left, because you will see that no matter what I do, this will never go above -2 dB. All right? Oh yeah, and Cesare was asking, what's the difference between Premieres and Audition's multiband? Nothing at all. As Evil Cerise pointed out, they are exactly the same. In fact, we took Audition's, many of Audition's effects, and we put them here in Premiere by design. All right? Woohoo! Okay, sweet. So here we go. Ready? Take a listen. Let me wind it back so we're... Yeah, we got plenty. All right, here we go. Of course, I have to go into the halftime section here. All right, so I'm increasing threshold. Now let's cut it off. You ready? Turn it back on. Off. Now you can hear with it off that really the kick and the snare are kind of just the focus here. When you put that limiter in there, you can go really extreme on this. Now, I don't know if I recommend a threshold of -17 here, but you can really hear how everything just comes up front. It's really front and center, again, and it's just kind of, okay? Now, someone was asking, what about audio for film? Yes, you can absolutely use a brick wall limiter during the mastering of the audio, the final mix of your audio for something like that, which I'm going to show you now. And that's completely legit. Now, obviously, with movies, you tend to have a little bit more literal breathing room, meaning that you're not necessarily limiting quite as much because you want there to be some semblance of dynamics. In other words, the more that you increase that threshold, the more that you limit that signal, you're squashing, you're removing any dynamics. So, you know, in that song, that halftime section, technically, if we were watching it live, it's a little quieter, it's a little chill. But with the brick wall limiter, it's just always, so it's always in your face. It's always present. It's always loud. And to be honest with you, this is kind of how we consume most content today, right? Even movies, especially movie trailers, right? So movie, cinema, TV shows, they're still mixed with some dynamics. Movie trailers, and we just had some guests on this other show that I do for Adobe called Make It. Yeah, movie trailers they're just in your face, because they have to grab your attention. How do you grab someone's attention? Brick wall limiting. Michelle, bring it alive. Absolutely. That's it, you know? So now in the speaking of audio for video. So this is, I've shown this before on here. Some of you may have seen this. This is a movie trailer that I cut with my colleague Michael Shez, and called Something's Happening, done entirely with Adobe stock video footage, and then I scored the piece. And so just take a quick listen here. I'll just kind of scrub ahead. Now, this has all kinds of sound design and everything else in there as well. But I'll let you hear it before we add any kind of limiting, when it's all just kind of loose. So take a quick listen here. Okay, so again, sounds pretty good, right? You wouldn't say, oh, that's missing something. But now we're going to go ahead and place the multiband brick wall on there. Now, Evil Cerise asks a great question. Why not, if I'm not using any of the compression bands, why not just use the hard limiter? The hard limiter is also a brick wall and or digital ceiling limiter. And you can see it has basically the same four controls. Your max amplitude is the equivalent of the margin, okay? The input boost is acting like the threshold control in the multiband, and look ahead is attack and then release time. So it's the same thing. Why not this one over the other one? I'll be honest with you, because the multiband brick wall sounds better. It just sounds better. This one, it sounds okay. It tends to be honest, it tends to break up when you use it at higher values. And what I mean by that is you're getting certain digital distortions and artifacting that are not necessarily as musical. That's not to say that's not a bug. That's not. Every compressor sounds different. So whether you're using ours or third-party plugins that are emulating classic, 70s, 80s gear or 60s gear, DBX or Uri or anything like that, they all sound a little bit different, and they can all be used for different things. Now, I tend to use the hard limiter when I want more of a very affected, very processed kind of limited sound, all right? Particularly a digital sounding one. This one actually has tube modeled circuitry. This we licensed from a company called Isotope. And that tube modeling gives it a little bit more warmth, a little bit more analog fatness without some of that digital artifacting. So that's a great question. So that's exactly why I use this. So now let's go ahead, we'll do the same thing. I'm gonna bypass the bands here, make sure the brick wall is on. Let's go ahead and wind this back. I'll set my margin to around, let's do -3. Let's just say we're going to YouTube with this. All right, I'll wind back here. And so we can kind of hear the whole thing again. And we'll do the same process of kicking this in. Ready? Here we go. So excited I knocked my headphones off. All right. So if we just go back a few moments here so you can hear what I was talking about. Let's just go right before the end, and I'll turn this off so you can kind of hear this. Oh, things are going slowly today. What's going on? Here we go. All right. So this is without it. Let's kick it in. Maybe that wasn't enough. All right. Go to this section here. Okay, first with it off. All right, now let's kick it in. There we go. All right, that's movie trailer legit. Loud, in your face. And just like, there's no breathing. There's no breathing allowed here because that's how you grab people's attention. Yes, Michelle, love the difference that it makes. Now, as I said, it's very easy to overdo. So, be sure that you check it, on multiple speaker systems. If you've got someone who does a bit more audio. Oh, thank you, Cesare, Saif, Michelle. If you've got someone who, who mixes audio more often than you, have them listen to make sure that you're not overdoing it. Because again, there can be an artifact of breathing and pumping, again, something you can learn more about via Audio 101, that you don't necessarily want, okay? So not to say that less is more. No, more is more with a brick wall limiter. But this is one of my favorites, all right? Top 5. All right, we got 37 minutes. Perfect, because we're exactly where I want to be. So the next thing we're going to talk about, now this is, it's an effect, but it's also something that you can access within the multi-track, and that is what we call our stretching algorithm, or in the case of multi-track, global clip time stretching. And what this basically allows you to do is to take any sound, and now this is really awesome for sound design, take any sound and then stretch it to either fit a particular duration, or in the case of sound design, elongate or shorten a performance without affecting pitch, or you can do it so the pitch is affected, or you can, adjust the tempo without affecting the pitch, and so on and so forth. It's just very flexible, and this is something that you can do in both the waveform view and the editing view, all right? Now, Michelle was just like, I know we were talking about music here, but what kind of difference would this make to dialogue? Yeah, so again, Michelle, case in point, it's going to do everything that you just heard, like in that trailer, and just bring that dialogue front and center. And if the mix is good, right? Now, this is one of those kind of key caveat things. And again, I've got a whole thing on mixing, Audio 101 on mixing. You know, the mix has to be good. If there's problems in the mix and you throw a limiter on everything, you're going to reveal those problems. So if you have very bassy or boomy dialogue and you throw a limiter on top of the final, which has the music and the sound design, you know, you may have to use an EQ in between the brick wall to get rid of some of that. That is not uncommon. That's part of mastering. There's always a bit of that generally in any case. But no, it has the same effect. It's awesome. All right, it's absolutely awesome. And in fact, if you check out more is more, but too much is too much. JK Digital, excellent concept there. I love that. Okay. The hardest part of online distribution is you have no idea what the viewer has for audio, speakers, headphones, or PC. Yes, and that's absolutely true, effing done, because and that's partially why stuff today is mixed so loud, because you don't know if they're on a laptop with their little laptop speakers. You got to play something and it's like very quiet. People just aren't gonna. They don't even bother most of the time to turn it up. They'll just go to another video, you know. And then they hear one that's loud, and they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, that guy sucks." True. Sad. You know, sad days. No more dynamics, but true. If you want to grab people's attention, you want to make it loud, and the best way to do that is to listen on multiple sources, multiple devices, and just. You know, just see for yourself. Jenny Appleton, how are you doing? When is something happening going to be released? Probably again amongst many of the pieces of content of my own that will and shall remain on the cutting room floor. Although I may actually put out that creepy music because I really like it. Now, having said that, let's take a listen. So what do we have here? Well, I started by recording a whole series of ascending strings via my keyboard, playing these with native instrument sound. So they're fantastic samples. And I'm playing all these parts live. So all the crescendos and any sforzando and any glissando, that's played. These are not loops or anything. I actually played these parts. And this was the original. Now, it sounds like I did some little step here to change the key on each one of these markered sections, and that's fine. So after I did that, again, part of what I wanted to do in terms of sound design was kind of slow that down and make it sludgy. I wanted the pitches to be the same, but I wanted it to take longer to get to that incremental. Why can't I think of the word? Brain, fire. Half step. Thank you. Half step increments in pitch. I just spilled coffee on myself. Oh, and on my keyboard. I did. What's happening? Something's happening. All right. So to do that, there's a couple of different ways. Now, if you do it inside the waveform view, you have a couple of things here. And this is, again, why I point out my favorites, because you'll notice that we have not one, not two, but 3 shift stretching type algorithms that you can use. The pitch bender, the pitch shifter, and stretch and pitch. The one I'm going to focus on here is stretch and pitch. Now what's cool about this is, first of all, you've got 2 different algorithms that you can leverage. Now we've got Isotope's Radius, which anyone who uses third-party plugins will know. Isotope, Radius is their own patented stretching algorithm. It works very, very well. Minimal artifacting, especially when you're doing slowdowns without pitch changes. It's very good. And then we have our native algorithm, which quite honestly, for a lot of things, I like ours even better. You've just got 2 options. That's the key. Which one do you choose? You just have to listen to them. So let's just start with the native Audition one here. Now, you'll see that you have immediately options to adjust duration. So if we wanted to adjust the duration, but keep the pitch the same, you can see that you've got this other stretch and pitch section here that you can modify as well. So if I wanted this to be longer without changing pitch, you can just dial in a number here, okay? Something like that. We don't want a final stretch here. Let me zoom back out. All right, making it longer. And if I were to play this back, let's move our cursor back over here. So first, here it is without anything. Right, and that's super creepy as it is. If we turn this on now this should be slower, but again, still playing at the same pitch. Now you might say to yourself, it doesn't sound too great, actually. Well, it sounds interesting, right? Again, this is part of sound design. So we're elongating by, more than about 50%. So it's half speed, but now it's 1.5 times as long. This is where we might change the algorithm to see what the differences sound like. Again, let's not do any pitch shifts here. Let's keep it native. And it's not a solo instrument or voice because there's polyphony in here. So I'm going to uncheck that box. One of the things you'll notice in the isotope radius one is that you've got a couple more options for like preserving speech characteristics, a little bit more control over the formant shift. This is something that you use when, again, if you're stretching something like here where we have cellos and violins. If this were a solo instrument, traditionally these types of algorithms, they didn't have formant control, which meant that's kind of preserving the timbre of the instrument. So if you stretched a cello, it would cease sounding like a cello, right? It wouldn't have the warm, big-bodied sound of a cello. It would start sounding like a violin or a viola. Formant shift allows you to kind of control a bit of that and kind of keep the original characteristic. Let's take a quick listen to this, though, and see what this sounds like. Let's put it back at the beginning here. So here's before. Now this is also a bit challenging because, again, we've got, we're playing the style in which these are being played. There's a lot of vibrato going on here. So again, we're making that stretch algorithm work even harder to stretch it out but maintain the same pitch. So let's take a listen now using the isotope algorithm. Now you throw some reverb on there, you throw something else on there, it's going to sound pretty awesome. And if you go, extreme, let's make it twice as long here. All right. Take a listen again. All right. So again, a lot of flexibility with how you use this. Now hold on, I'm getting a little spinny beach ball here. Why is that happening? Because we're live, that's why it's happening. There you go. You have to believe. So let's go. Let me try and get out of here. Let's see, I may have to restart the app. Come on, beach ball. Don't do that to me. There we go. Okay. So that's using that in the waveform view. Now again, you can process that destructively. Where it gets cool though is, again, when you're in multi-track and you're trying to again fit audio against a video or fit it to a specific length, which is what I was doing. I wanted this kind of crescendo of these strings to stretch out over about 30 seconds or so. You need the visual reference, and that's where you do it in multitrack. All right, you know what? And I had a dynamic link going on here and just a bunch of sessions, so I think that's why it's kind of bombing out on me. No worries, we'll just open that back up. We're going to delete that, and we'll continue here, and we'll go back to the multitrack. So let's go and open up Something's Happening, like this. All right, let's pull all the files in. There we go. There's our ascending strings. And here what you can see on the track inside the multitrack, we have 198% stretch happening on this. And we play this one here. All right. Sounds pretty awesome. Creepy as hell, right? And that's partially because I'm also using a phaser and some analog delay on that. So again, additional effects to give it just dirty it up, to grunge it up a bit more. Now this is using, again, this feature here, the global clip stretching, which is accessed simply by hovering your mouse over the little corner triangles that you see on your clips, both at the top left and top right. And as you drag these, we just drag this even further, you see it's showing you the percentage that you're stretching. Okay, so we were at 198, now we're at 222, now we're at 238. Again, we can wind this back and play from here, or just play it backwards. That sounds weird. All right, that analog delay, we're going to come back to that in a few moments. Now, where do you modify parameters here? Well, this is where if you right-click on this clip and go to Stretch, Stretch Properties, you'll see you have a couple of options. Now, you're going to notice that you've got a stretch mode. I'm currently in a real-time mode. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that it's doing all this stretching in real time, which means that for playback purposes, the quality is not quite as good. So if you want it to be really sort of perfect, you can use the rendered method. It's just going to take a little bit longer before when you hit that play bar, or in this case, the space bar, before it actually gives you your sound. It just has to do a quick pre-render on that. So that's something that you can consider. I tend to leave it in real time, and especially for sound design, if I want it gritty, it just depends on the sound. This is a very complex, multi-layered, it's already kind of dissonant. So in terms of tonalities, they're all over the place. It's already kind of crunchy and grungy. This is exactly what I want. But this is what I'm here to show you, that inside of your stretch options, you have mode, real-time or rendered, okay? Type, mono, poly, or vary speed. And this is what I wanted to show you here, because this is polyphonic, meaning multiple notes played simultaneously. If we had a single trumpet, or just a single cello playing single notes, or a flute, or even a voice, we would choose monophonic. The second you have two or more tones playing simultaneously, now you're in polyphonic. And how it stretches, the success of the stretch, is based on that. Now the third option that you're given here is vary speed. And what this does is this simulates the classic sort of tape style stretching, where if you were to slow the tape machine down, and I actually mean like the old reel-to-reel machines, if you slow them down to make it longer, what happens? The pitch goes down. If you play it back faster, you speed it up, the pitch is higher as well, okay? Now that can also be really, really great if you're, again, if you're trying to go for a darker, grungier, just really dirty kind of sound. Now the nice thing is, because you're vary speeding, quality-wise, you're not going to get any sort of weird artifacting. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and drop this. Let's do that same thing where we make it twice as long, but now you can see it's actually down 11 semitones. Okay, that's what that amount of vary speed, 194%, would sound like. So take a listen to this now. Psychosion, yes. Sony MDR 7506. Vanessa, Tackle Boys, what's up? Hence analog, yes. All right. So you hear the difference? It doesn't have, again, some of the artifacts that you have when you're using polyphonic or monophonic via the stretching algorithms. And similarly, if we were to take this the other direction and just speed this up, right? Kind of Mickey Mouses the whole thing very quickly. So you've got a lot of options for stretching algorithms. You can do this totally non-destructively. Again, you can do it visually. So if we wanted these strings, I don't even know how long it needs to be. I just know that it needs to last this amount of time. That happens to be a 222% stretch. Then I just choose the type of stretch and I let it do its thing. We're in vary speed, but we're not maintaining pitch anymore. Which could also work too. If I put back all these other strings, there's like five or six tracks of strings here. All right. It can get super creepy, all right? So stretching in Audition can be awesome. This can also be used for voices. Sometimes you just need to make a phrase a little bit faster, right? Like I've said something, okay, hi, this is Jason Levine. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I need that to be 5 seconds. You can use this stretch, maintaining pitch. So again, we would use real-time or rendered, and we use monophonic for my voice, and I can speed it up or slow it down without changing my pitch to make it fit a particular duration. I saw somebody mention podcast there before. Hey, what's up, Leon? Same concept applies, all right? So this would be a perfect way to do that. If you need to speed something up or slow it down, maintaining pitch, whether in the multitrack or in the waveform view. Okay, So we've got multiband comp brick walling for number 1. We've got global stretching, stretch and pitch for number 2. Number 3 is the analog delay. So let me go ahead. We're going to close this session. And we're going to open up another one here. Another classic from back in the day. This is my master session for Gather the Crowd, my song about Creative Cloud, available now on Spotify, Apple Music, and everywhere music is streamed or sold. So here I have my all-time favorite keyboard, the Fender Rhodes, and I want to add a little bit of delay to this. So let's take a quick listen to this dry first. Vanessa, Saw 8. Yes, that did sound pretty Saw-like, exactly. Joke and book. It makes you wonder what the Beatles, George Martin, would have done in the studio with this kind of tech. Well, yeah, and, you know, the fact that we have phaser and artificial double tracking, automatic double tracking, and all these things, I mean, they invented all of that stuff, which eventually became stomp boxes and the digital variations that we have today. Yeah, to think that they could have used this kind of stuff then, I mean, well, who knows? I mean, they invented it in the analog domain. It's crazy, right? And tape stretching and playing tape backwards and synchronizing tape by slowing one down and speeding one up to find the key. This is how Strawberry Fields was put together. Separate takes. One was in B flat, one was in C, and they had to stretch them to kind of find the middle. So cool. All right, so take a listen here. This is a Fender Rhodes playing some Gather the Crowd here. Take a quick listen. Oh, and here I may need to... Here, I'm just to make this louder. Hold on. I'm just going to pump up our master fader so you can hear this better. Now you can see I've got some tremolo on there. I'm going to turn off my automation so I can, again, make this just a little bit louder, easier to hear for you. All right? And we want to add some delay. Now, there's lots of different delays in Audition again, and delay basically allows you to do one of three things. You can have a single repeat delay, also known as a slapback. So this is like the classic sort of Elvis effect. So here, I can show you that live real quickly. Let me see. Actually, I think I can. Let's do this. This should work. So once again, in Audition, if we go to delay and echo, we have 3 variations here. So if we were to go to something like a classic slapback delay. Do we have a slapback in here? Yeah. All right, this is a little too much. Am I hearing this now? I don't know if this is going through or not. Why am I not hearing that? I don't know. Hold on, I'm checking my checking to see why I'm not hearing that. Huh. Are you hearing slapback in there? I'm not hearing it. Am I monitoring myself? I don't know if I am. I should be hearing it too, and I'm not. Okay. Well, all right. I wasn't planning on doing that. Doesn't matter. I don't need myself to showcase slapback. Slapback is, you know, again, classic 50s Elvis where you hear this da-da, da-da, da-da. The second you say something or play something, da-da, da-da, da-da. No, you weren't hearing it. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why that's not going through. Anyway, I'm going to try one more time. Let's see if that works. No, not working. Okay. Slapback delay. Then you have what we call multi-tap or echoes, where you can have things kind of go, hello, 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 hi, 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 what, are, you, doing. That's kind of an echo style delay. And then you have, or multi-tap, and then you have kind of a more classic, traditional analog style or tape style delay where you can adjust duration, all right, of the first repeat. So hello, 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 hello. But then you also have controls to allow that same signal to feed back on itself. This is something that we used to do in the tape days. I still have a classic Revox tape machine where you can feed back the delayed signal to the other part of the tape head. And what happens is it creates this infinite loop, and you get this, this crazy kind of sound. This was used a lot in the early days of production, and it's no different today. You can do the same things here. And this, to achieve that sound, you're going to use the analog delay. So let's go ahead and bring up some analog delay here on this electric piano, and we're going to mess around. Now, if we wanted to do a very simple kind of slapback-ish style, you can also kind of do that in here. You control the number of repeats or the amount of delays via the feedback setting here, okay? Now you'll notice you got a couple of different options here. You've got mode, tape, tape tube, and analog. So obviously this is going to simulate tape. This will simulate a sort of tube-based tape machine or classic analog style. This one to me has the most tape-like characteristic of all of them. If you've ever worked with analog tape delay, this one really gets that sound. Now part of that is that when you'd have subsequent delays, subsequent echoes, each echo in an analog delay or a tape delay would start to lose high frequency. So like if you said, hello, 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 it would kind of sound like that. Whereas in the 80s, when we introduced digital delay, when someone just said Heartbreak Hotel, Joken Boken. Yes, exactly. That is a classic slapback tape echo. In the 80s, when we had digital delay was IMHO, the worst, just one of the worst digital creations of sound ever. Why? Because every delay would have the same frequency characteristic. So when you said hello, 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 all the high end, all the crispness, it was always there. And it was so bright and awful. Just the worst. 80s digital delay is just, it's not, if it's your thing, thumbs up. I despise it. I want my delays, my repeats to get gradually darker, a little creepier. Again, ask me my true feelings on that. So that's what the trash setting does. The trash allows you to really emulate that tape style and really kind of dirty up those subsequent repeats. And then you have the spread. Now, this particular electric piano it's technically mono, but it's mixed in a stereo kind of environment. So the spread is just going to allow you to kind of allow that delay to move around in space. And if you pan that particular track in question, we're using this at the track level, by the way, not at the clip level. In this case, I've got it going a little bit more to the left. That spread is going to, again, kind of offset the delays a bit more, just to give you a bit more space. And then you have your dry balance and your wet balance. Dry is how much direct signal, wet is how much delayed or affected signal. So 62% is a lot of delayed signal. So let's take a listen here. Let's start around 25% or so. I'm going to drop the delay time in milliseconds here back, and let's just kind of go for like a more Heartbreak Hotel-ish Elvis-y style delay. Here we go. Hear how it has that da 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 da. Okay, that that's 89 milliseconds. Now, as you increase that, you're going to start to get longer and longer. So let's go like to 220 or 215 here. And as I increase the feedback, we're going to get more and more repeats. All right, that's that real tape style, okay? So you can use this now to get very trippy, dreamy, elongated sounds off of an instrument, off of a vocal. So again, if we were to put this on vocals, let's unsolo this. I'll go to my dry, unprocessed vocal here. Is this it? I think this is it. Shout it aloud, Creative Cloud. Shout it aloud. Gather the crowd. Shout it aloud, Creative Cloud. Shout it aloud. Gather the crowd. Shout it aloud, Creative Cloud. Shout it aloud. Gather the crowd. Shout it aloud, Creative Cloud. Shout it aloud. Gather the crowd. Shout it aloud, Creative Cloud. Shout it aloud. And you can hear now, I'm actually got it beating in time. Gather the crowd, out, out, out. Shout it aloud, loud, loud. All right. And there's actual calculators that you can use to calculate that delay time from beats per minute into milliseconds, okay? So, in fact, I think there's an app for the iPhone that does that too. So this is a great way, again, to bring space and dimension and life into a vocal and into an instrument. You can use that feedback control to give you more repeats. And did you notice as those repeats were happening, they were getting duller, darker. That's what trash is doing. Now, again, if you were to back off on the feedback, and if we were to do something, a common technique for singing vocals is to have a combination of what you call either quarter note or half note repeats, and then some very fast repeats as well, which kind of gives it a little bit more body. Gather the crowd, shout it aloud, Creative Cloud. Yeah, Creative Cloud. Yeah. See, that's with a 92 millisecond delay, and that's kind of the, well, since my baby left me, bum bum, well, bum bum, right? Same kind of style. By the way, a great way to really punctuate a fast delay is to sing or speak staccato. If you're very legato, it kind of gets lost. But if... I mean, they were singing with the effects often live, by the way, when those records were cut. Most of the time, in fact. Elvis was hearing that in his cans, as they were often referred to. So when you have that, again, that's kind of... And Buddy Holly, too, that real clipped staccato sound, it just lends itself to allowing you to hear those repeats. Okay? Nice. Okay. Yes. Yes, Paul. Very good. Okay, so that's our analog delay. Again, this is my absolute favorite delay in Audition. It's one of my top 5. And we've got 8 minutes for 2 more features here. Okay, this next one is a quick one. Says the man who can't not narrate about everything. This one is the match loudness. Now you might say, that's not an effect. Well, it's in the effects menu, so that's why we're talking about it. And I get asked about this probably every stream, anytime I'm in the presence of actual humans. How do I make all of my audio files like the same loudness, appear the same volume? Again, this kind of goes back to that brick wall limiting, right? You're working on a piece where you've got a lot of different music for the edit, or you've got 8 different cuts for your album, but they were mixed and mastered by different people or at different times. Or maybe they were mixed and mastered at the same time, but they don't all sound kind of the same. One seems a bit louder than the other, and there's some fluctuation there. Well, you can use our match loudness panel to automatically make everything appear to sound the same. And you can do this either by matching to a specific file reference or to a specific broadcast audio reference level. Here's how we do that. So from within the match loudness panel, I'm going to go up here and choose Add Files. Oh, Michelle uses this all the time. Michelle, you are in the know. Awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, people don't even know that this exists sometimes, and this is a fantastic one. So, okay, so I'm going to take a couple of different things here. Let's see, we've got these are like music beds that I created eons ago. I'm going to a couple different styles here. So we've got some wedding and event beds. All right, so I'm just going to grab a couple of these. These are 30 seconds. Just so we have a couple of variations here. And let's do sports. Now, I mixed and mastered all of these, so it's possible It's possible that they might already be around the same loudness, but I don't think so. Okay, so right when I drop it into this panel, now I had this enabled. I don't know if this is enabled by default. This little button here, you'll see it says computes loudness, average volume, perceived volume. So if that box isn't checked, check that. And what that does is it automatically scans and identifies all of the loudness attributes of your files. So in other words, in terms of ITU, so this is related to our US broadcast standard loudness, it's showing you, and by the way, when we're talking about loudness these days, we're not measuring in dB. See, when we used to work in RMS, even as of a couple years ago, we were measuring in a scale called dBFS. That's decibels relative to full scale. Now it's changed, and we're actually using a different scale. We're using a loudness scale now, which is based around loudness units relative to full scale, LUFS. So this is the new standard. So if you want to, if you're in a production meeting and you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, and someone says, well, the files are all wrong, and all that, you say, oh, well, I mixed everything to minus 23 LUFS based on the ITUR BS 1770-3 standard. That silence, that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to go, oh, dang, someone knows what they're talking about. So that's what that ITU means. But we're talking about LUFS. That's the measurement scale that we're working in today. And you can see that just based on that alone, our bossa nova beds, minus 16, minus 18, classic corporate ones, event ones, minus 10, they're all over the map. Now the rock ones, no surprise, these are the loudest, okay? And you can even see if you look at the RMS values here. True peak, this is also, again, relative to the LUFS scale. These are kind of the classic dBFS measurements, okay? And we've got no signal clipping on any of these. So if we wanted all of these to conform to a specific level, like let's say all of these were going to a podcast, well, the standard, it's not an absolute must be, but the agreed upon standard for podcast audio is minus 16 LUFS. So if you come down to the bottom of the panel here, if I just drag it up and zoom in, now you can see you can match to specific things. So we can match to, again, one of the standards here, you can match to a file. So you can say, oh, that, I just downloaded, what was it? If you guys know Beth Ditto, she used to be in The Gossip. Love Beth Ditto. She got a new album out, just got the vinyl today. I want all my files to match that same loudness. I can match it to a specific file. Or I can match to a loudness standard, for instance, the EBUR 128. This is the European broadcast standard. Or one of these others, or a true peak, or a peak, which you don't often do. We can leave it at any one of them in any case, if I want to conform more to the US standard here, but then you can manually adjust the actual target. So if this were going to a podcast, I would again make this minus 16. I can leave my tolerance at 2 loudness units. A maximum true peak. Again, this is based on the US standard here. You don't really have to mess with these all that much. This is really just going to, and again, at minus 16, that shouldn't be an issue in any case. This is just, when we talk about peak level versus true peak, when we're working in LUFS, your true peak can actually register above 0. Remember I told you at the beginning that we're working in a negative logarithmic scale where 0 is as loud as possible? Anything over 0 technically is digitally clipped. Well, when you measure true peak, you can actually have signal above 0. In which case, that means that your target or your tolerance were too high, and you have to attenuate or bring those down. Look ahead and release, we know what those are, right? Those are the same things that we saw in the hard limiter and our brick wall ceiling limiter. We're going to leave those at the defaults. The only reason it would use this is if your signal was too hot and it needed to squeeze it down. Again, we're basically bringing most of these files down, not really raising too much here. So it's very unlikely that we'd have to use any additional limiting. So we set it at minus 16, all right? Go over here and click on Run, which you can't see. It's in the bottom right corner. There it is right there. Run, all right? All right? And just like that, it conforms all of these. Now, you may have slight fluctuation. This one, for whatever reason, is still measuring at minus 18, but I guarantee the average playout is minus 16, okay? And again, this is something which if we were going to a podcast, this isn't going to get bounced. Now, similarly, if we were to say, let's instead, we're going to go to, we're making an album here, all right? So we're going to go minus 6 instead, okay? We can readjust these, and it tells you what the average adjustment had to be. So if we were going to play all these back, let's go back to our editor here. All right, and let's play this one. You can hear they have that kind of same loudness characteristic. Okay, let's check out that rock one. Now, these were significantly louder before. Let's see what they sound like now. All right, heavily limited there too. All right, so match loudness, awesome. It's an awesome way to take all that audio and just make it all the same apparent loudness. If you're mixing for audio, for Spotify, for iTunes, it just means that you're not going to have to be doing any volume adjusting as you play back. Everybody hates that, right? I was listening to a playlist last night, doing a little grilling outside in an 80s mood, and a lot of those 80s albums, they didn't get remastered, so you're listening to like Beat It, which has been remastered and reissued and re-released a million times, and it's loud, it sounds awesome. And then you get to, there's some George Michael in there, and a couple of those old Wham songs have never been remastered, and they sound like 20 dB quieter. And it just kind of kills it, And what do? Skip. Although I never skip George Michael. Never. I just turn it up. But then you get to the next song, and it's way loud, right? Match loudness can solve that problem for you. All right? So I saw somebody was asking, someone was just asking me something about how does this relate to normalizing. Now, again, normalize is not the same thing, right? So it can be similar. Normalize focuses solely on the peak amplitude, the loudest peak in an audio file, which is why match loudness allows you to match to peak levels. That's not going to adjust dynamics at all. The problem is that's not going to make things all sound as loud, because you can have a file that's very, very quiet, and then you have one loud peak. That loud peak, that's now what it's going to match to. Let's say that peak was 0. Now, so that file is not going to get any louder, right? So they're different things, but that's why, yes, match loudness allows you to use peak level as well. Okay, and the very last thing that I'm going to show you here, I think we need to open up another session for this. Let's go back to the multi-track, and we'll close Gather the Crowd. Not save any changes here. We're a couple minutes over, but that's okay. And here, I'm going to open up one of my another one of my sessions. So we'll go into another one of the songs from my my children's record. Hopefully this session loads. Called Just Play Piano, Vocals, and Drums. All right. And the effect we're going to talk about here is the studio reverb. The studio reverb and the full reverb. What I love about these is that these effects, these reverb effects, allow you to create very beautiful sounding rooms, halls, plates, chambers, springs, and really emulate all different styles of environments. And this is the native Audition effect. So what I have here, once again, is I've got all these background vocals in this session. And you can see they're all grouped together here. If I zoom in down below, you can see they're all labeled BGV1, BGV2, BGV3, BGV4, BGV5, BGV5. So I usually do anywhere from 3 to 6 tracks of harmonies, and I just sing them live, right? I just harmonize live. And if we go ahead and scroll ahead to where there's some background vocals here. Hold on. Okay, it needed to do that. I don't know what's going on. This session, I apologize in advance. I don't know. There may be something. I may have to open a different session here, but we'll give it another shot. All right, give me a second. We'll reload that. All right. Reset my workspace. Okay. Go to our mixer. I'm going to take off some of these things too. A bunch of stuff in here that we don't need. And I'm going to unfreeze a bunch of this. We don't need that. And we should be good to go. Hopefully. Okay. So let's take a listen now. And listen to these background vocals. Nope. Why is that session not going to work? Okay. Try a different session with more background vocals because I have many of those. Let's try a different one. Because I don't want to waste any more time. Those were good ones, though. Too bad. All right, while I'm doing this, questions. Questions. All right. Got a few more minutes. All right. You're very welcome, Evil Cerise. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what we got here. If this bombs on me for whatever reason, well, we'll think positively. Okay. Here we go. Let's take a quick listen. Okay, so you're hearing a bunch of very dry vocals. So here I have them all grouped together on a sub-fader somewhere. There they are, under Oz. And we're going to go to Reverb, Studio Reverb. Okay. Now, here's an example where we have a lot of presets, many of which I designed for you to use. Again, the whole concept here, Rob Jenner III, the whole concept here is to place those things in a different environment. And very commonly with background vocals, you're going to use something like a vocal plate, or maybe you use a hall, right? Each of these different environments or reverb types have a different sound. Plates are very bright and shimmery, which is good for stuff that has a lot of like those glottally sounds. If you want to kind of you want that shimmer kind of sound, plates can be great for that. Hall reverb is a bit darker, a bit warmer, but can also work nicely. And then there's variations of everything in between. We got a lot of cool plates to simulate here. So let's start with something like a large reverb plate, all right? Once again, I usually start with about 100% dry and I just roll in the wet signal. Let's do that and take a listen here and hear what this sounds like. And I'm actually going to just kind of loop this so that we can kind of hear this over and over again. All right? Here we go. Okay, so that's kind of an example of using a plate there. Let's go to something like a hall so you can hear what that sounds like. Okay, now hold on one second. I just want to look at one other thing here because all of my ahs, yeah, they're all pre-fader. Okay, that's why. So hold on. I need to just turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, turn this off. You're probably going, what is he talking about? I'm sending all of those ahs, but I still have control of the original dry signal, which I don't want for now. So I'm now, because they're going pre-fader, I just turned off any automation. I'm dropping the level of those. What that's going to allow me to do is to work solely with these wet and dry sliders. Okay. right, so that's a hall. Let's go into something like just an ambient reverb. So an ambient room. This would kind of simulate like a small room type ambience. Take a listen to this. And there's just the reverb signal. So that's the sound of the room. And you can increase decay. Early reflection is going to give you a little bit more sort of spectral bouncing, right? Based on whether or not you're actually in stereo or not. But it's just early reflections. You're going to start to hear reflections of that reverb a bit sooner. They're brighter. They're going to bring a little more definition and clarity. Again, width, if you're panned in stereo, this is going to make that reverb very stereo sounding versus very, very mono. And then you've got these high frequency, low and cut. Now where this really comes into play is with things like reverb plates, where if you want all of that really high end, again, that sort of glottally, all that stuff to pass through, you don't want it to cut off at 6K. You want it to be probably around 8K. Take a listen here. All right, let's wait till it wraps back around. Maybe even more. Now watch what happens if we drop this. Here the reflections are darker. Okay, and we can also dampen less, all right? So you get the idea. So you've got an enormous amount of flexibility with this very simple effect, and we've got really great presets here. This one, Outside the Club, this is actually pretty cool because this gives it that kind of like, again, your someone's outside sound. And you notice part of that is just that there's no dry signal. And they're cutting off all the high frequency, all right? So what that means is that everything above 897 hertz is gone, and everything below 385 hertz, that's gone as well. Now, if you wanted that to be like bassy, like if you were trying to simulate, you're standing outside the door and you're hearing the music, you know, kind of peek through, you could drop this so that it preserves a little bit more of that low-end thump and boom, and then it's really going to sound that way. It's really going to sound like you're outside the club. So there's great presets in there. The last one, again, was the full reverb. And this, the reason I pulled this up, this is an effect, we don't typically recommend using this for real time, but why I like this is, one, got a lot of presets. So like here's something, medium concert hall, crisp. All right, wind this back and take a listen here. See what that sounds like if it's going to play for me. Again, this isn't really optimized for real time. It's really crisp and clean. Why I love this, though, aside from the presets, you can see there's all different, the king's bathroom, right? Vocal double, in the shower, gymnasium, furnished living room. These are actually based on impulse samples that were taken in a lot of these environments too, by the way. What's amazing about this is that you can customize the actual room dimensions. So for those of you that do sound design. Oh, and Rob is saying audio on the iPad Pro is incredible. Oh, dude, that's awesome. That's great to hear. If you are trying to recreate the sound of a specific room, you can actually dial in the dimensions here, the actual room size. You can see in meters cubed, width and depth, left and right. I mean, you can do some amazing things and then actually recreate the room itself. You even have a separate EQ here because certain rooms, again, if they're more reflective, here in this studio, you can see I'm treating my walls here. I'm about 60% done. You can't see the other side over here. It's getting there. The whole back wall is treated here. This just allows you to really recreate the sound of a space, which is really incredible. And, you know, depending upon what it is that you're doing here, if we went to like gymnasium, let's hear this one. This is obviously going to be very long and echoey probably, and also kind of a bit darker too. Think like, you know, basketball. Like, okay, yeah, I'm just looking at the settings here. You've got a lot of diffusion. Now And again, you got a little bit of that shimmer in there. And think about if you've ever been to like a live basketball game, the ball hits the court and the squeaking of the shoes. Notice how those sounds tend to reverberate around the room? Yeah, it's like it's one of those characteristics that a gym tends to echo. That's what these presets do. So there's some really cool stuff in here. It's also some very bizarre ones. I think this rich chamber is another nice one too. This effect, as mentioned, though, is not ideal for real-time, which is why you're seeing it process before it actually plays. Okay, but you can get some amazing, amazing sonic spaces by using these effects. So, my friends, that is all the time I have. I've gone way over, as I always tend to do. Thanks for sticking around with me. Oh, that's awesome. The King's Bathroom. Yeah, you know, it's funny, Evil Cerise, these names, you know, for years we couldn't use any names that actually emulated like proper halls or things like that. So you had to get a little creative. Some of those I did, some, you know, I think it's just our engineers having fun. Synergy is asking, can you use match loudness with multiple finished video clips? Absolutely. And again, if you're sending audio over or sending a project over from Premiere, you can do the match loudness in Audition's multitrack and then actually export the whole thing via media encoder. You don't even have to go back to Premiere and do it that way. So yeah, really super easy. And yeah, all right. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. It's always a pleasure. Again, you'll be able to watch the replay right here on the Creative Cloud YouTube channel. And I'll see some of you tomorrow where I will be on the Creative Cloud, no, I will be on one of our Facebook pages, I think the Premiere Pro Facebook page or After Effects Facebook page, talking about, I believe I'm going to be doing time remapping. So quick 15 minutes on different time remapping and slow motion methods in Premiere Pro. So thanks again. Thank you, Evil Cerise, Philippe, Michelle, Vanessa, Robzilla, Cesar. Cesar, unfortunately, no MIDI tracks. We want MIDI in Audition, don't we? We want virtual instrument support. Shout it aloud. Tell them you want it. We need it. All right, Teresa, thank you so much from Spain. Jurg, great to have you with me. Joken Boken, JK Digital, always lovely to have you all here, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.